welcome everyone to the 4 o'clock session in the Justice Room. We're really lucky to have the Seed Sisters do a herbalism workshop with us now. It will be interactive, and it would be great if people aren't shy about having this session recorded, if they could show their faces at some point during the session. So the Seed Sisters are Fiona and Karen, and they're going to be talking about supporting yourself using herbs and community medicine. I'm really hyped about this myself because I'm very amateur, but really excited to hear from you two. So over to you when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, music.
Seed sisters in the garden. Seed sisters in the garden. Seed sisters in the garden.
Oh, hello. Let's just begin by taking a bit of a deep breath together. And maybe a sigh, sighing out any tension, filling our lungs with freshly oxygenated air, and letting go. And welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here. And we want to extend some gratitude to the earth. I'm actually looking out of a hotel window and I can see a tree in amongst the car park. Thank you to the trees, thank you to the earth beneath us, and for Fiona and myself, who've been working together for very many moons. All of the work, all of the energy, all of our focus and intention is about nature. Nature is our religion, our God. We believe that nature is magic and medicine, and we've been extremely privileged to be able to connect with herbal medicine for nearly our entire lives because of the families that we were born into and the world that we inhabit. And for that, thank you. Today we want to share with you ways that we've been able to stay rooted and stay grounded in this shifting world. And it's quite ironic that we're talking to you through this screen, but that's what's happened in our shifting world, as we all know, that since March 2020, we've been learning different ways of communicating this passion. We're passionately potty about plants, and we're learning new ways of sharing that with people who have an interest.
So we are the Seed Sisters. This is Karen and I'm Fiona, and we're going to be your guides for this next hour and a half or so. And we want to try and make this as interactive as possible. So we encourage you in the chat, if there's anything we say or that you've got any opinions on, you can chat amongst yourselves while we're talking. We might ask you questions as we go, which you can pop the answers into the chat to make it a bit more interactive. If you've got any burning questions for us that in relation to what we're saying in that moment, if you could just write them down in your notebooks, and then at the end we'll have time for questions and answers, and we'll address those then. We won't be answering any questions about your Aunt Fanny's rash or your personal health issues, because as I'm sure you're aware, health is a very complex, very individual and very personal thing that involves a lot more exploration, and we're very much not about this herb for this condition. We see conditions or symptoms as signs from the body, almost like a map as to what's going on at a deeper level. So in these sort of situations, if there's anything about plants or the planets or the earth or something around you or something that you've got a burning interest in, we can try and address that at the end. So we'll definitely leave lots of time for that. We will be sharing some slides, and we're going to have a look at our work that we do in medicine, and we are going to explore some herbs for supporting your own health, specifically the nervous system, which has been of vital importance to us certainly in the last couple of years. So we met at university many moons ago in 2019, 2020, no,
not 2019,
last century.
1999.
Last century. And we met over some exotic fruit in a canteen.
Pineapple.
It was kiwi, I'm pretty sure it was kiwi, but it definitely wasn't from these lands. And
at university, during the 4-year full-time Bachelor of Science degree in phytotherapy or herbal medicine, we were taught a lot about Chinese herbs, about American herbs,
Ayurvedic herbs,
and the fact that a Western herbalist has a dispensary that's full of herbs that are grown in far-flung climes really disturbed us, and we made a bit of a pact together to only use and work with local plants. So as herbalists, we have at our disposal, our fingertips, if you like, a dispensary. And a dispensary is a fantastical place. When, if any of you have had the opportunity to see a herbalist dispensary, it's often full of bottles of liquids, which are tinctures, alcoholic extracts of plant medicines, of jars full of dried herbs and powders and mixed teas, and the scents that come out, the smells are wonderful.
And it wasn't just about local herbs, as in herbs that are only native to here, because that's a whole talk in itself about native, naturalized plants. Many plants have been brought over here in different periods and times and become naturalized. And many plants grow really well in our gardens, but might be more Mediterranean in their nature, like your rosemaries of this world. So really it was about herbs that we could grow, that we could get to know through using our senses, through seeing what environment they thrive in, through looking at them and really connecting in, rather than just having this medicine in a brown bottle on the shelf, which we felt wasn't any more connected to the medicines than a white packet of pills off the pharmacy shelf. So we really wanted to get to know every single herb that we were using within our practices.
And in the very first year of our degree, one of the modules was the history of herbal medicine. And we were quite shocked to be told that witchcraft has absolutely nothing to do with medical herbalism. And we always identified with giving thanks and having altar spaces and things that are labelled witchy. Fiona was born on Halloween, so already born into the witchcraft. 3 nipples.
Shh, that's a secret.
Not anymore. And we knew that magic, the magic that comes from nature, the magic that we all feel when we see a rainbow, when we take a walk and we smell and interact and become one with the plants we're around with, that's magic. And our imaginations take us to fantastical places that they're like the essence of creativity.
And through creativity was one of the ways that we really like to learn about the plants. the idea that story is the way that we've always traditionally had our lineage of knowledge passed down is something that we were really interested in reviving through working with the herbs. And that might be, you may ask yourself why we are dressed the way we are. Maybe you don't, maybe you take.
Yeah, I've forgotten.
Maybe everyone's dressed like this in the conference today. But I'm Hedge Plum, I'm Damson, obviously.
Hello, I'm Apple.
And we like to embody the plants and create characters around them. And my friend Apple here has got a chip on her shoulder from 2,000 years of being accused of being the root of all evil.
It's true. It's true. Malus domesticus, they call me. Malus is the Latin word for evil. Domesticated evil is the apple. What kind of name's that?
But actually, she knows she's loved. She knows that everyone chants an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but she likes to tap back into that pain and angst. Whereas as I, Damson, I'm as old as settling humans and farming itself. Actually, Damascus, they think originally I came from. Damson's a shortening of Damascus, and they even think that it was the Crusaders maybe that spread my pips around the world and turned me into more juicy, watery plums that you get in your supermarket today.
What we've found through this story is, through the story of all the plants and embodying it and telling it, is that humans learn through active story much better than we do through books and black and white words. And we're able to bring in very complex history, folklore, medicine, pharmacology into those stories, and work with people who often through their own affirmations say, oh, I'm not very clever, I'm not very good at science, because that's something we see again and again with apprentices and students who would love to study herbal medicine, but the subject of herbal medicine can be overwhelming because there's so many facets to it, especially the science. And by bringing it to life in a more theatrical way, which is actually the way that our ancestors often learnt and shared knowledge through storytelling and theatre.
Dramatisation. And also you don't have to be bridled in what you say when you dress up as plants. We used to get a lot of people coming to us asking for proof about what we were doing, and we trained in white coats. And as soon as we felt really upset by being, after doing a 4-year full-time degree, being continuously questioned about our practices. And eventually we felt like we didn't have anything to prove, that the proof is in the pudding, that if you come and connect with the herbs, you'll soon be opened up to this world of the plants, and it becomes a knowing. And we threw all of that away and started embodying the characters and dressing up, and we soon stopped having to deal with the skeptics, because the skeptics don't come up to you if you're dressed as a hedge plum and ask you to prove what you're doing. And it really opened up the world to a much more creative way of interacting with the plants.
And when we talk about, like it says on this slide, medicinal herbs for psycho-emotional well-being, there's a lot of different ways that the herbs work for our psycho-emotional or mental health. And one of them is a very pragmatic physical state. Simply by drinking a herbal tea or taking a tincture, we're having a dose, a medical dose of that plant. But we've seen how sick our society is and how we are all suffering from lack of deep human and nature connection. And that's been going on for a very long time. Our communities have by and large been splintered, and people are living extremely individualistic, separate lives. And more, as we began working with the public, it became apparent that everybody is suffering and was suffering from trauma. And the way that we saw for healing on a much greater level than working as herbalists one-on-one was by creating community medicine gardens or community garden spaces. So we formed a social enterprise when we left university, which is a model of business structure that puts profits behind people and planet. So the kind of business world that is available is all based on profits. The capitalist structure, which so frustrates us, angers us. In fact, we often say we're completely driven by it's a cold rage, because there's a feeling of impotence against the mega structure. So we channel all of that rage into this work that we do. And the prime objective of our social enterprise is to connect people to one another and to their local herbs.
And here's a picture of one herb garden. It was actually already a herb garden that was overgrown, that we took on and had to dig out and replant. But our organisation is called Sensory Solutions Herbal Evolution, because we believe that what we're doing is both ancient and evolving, and that there is scope for everybody's input. So when you start a community medicine garden, what people's interests and skills are is all brought together in that melting pot, and people can learn from each other, come together, just drink tea. Some will be more involved than others, but this plant here, fennel, you won't see written about a lot as a nervine herb, so a herb that affects the nervous system. But actually, when you take it, it's so uplifting and centering that it's a herb that was written about by Hildegard von Bingen, an abbess from the 1100s, a long time ago. She wrote lots of music and she was a herbalist. And she said that fennel forces the spirits back into the correct balance of joy. And she was Germanic and used that very Germanic language to say that the spirits are forced back into the correct balance of joy. And you really get a sense of that when you take the fennel. And when you just go to herbals, books that have black and white words written about plants, you lose so much of the essence that you get through actually interacting and growing them. And you can grow them on your windowsill or even in the home in plant pots, but coming together to grow them, you can talk about the plants, you can talk about the experiences that you're having while you taste them and make teas from them. And it makes that experience much richer and much more able to remember and embody.
And here you can see we teach an apprenticeship down in Dorset at Monkton Wild. And one thing that we do with all of the people that come and work with us and apprentice to us is we challenge them to go and set up their own community medicine gardens. It's a prerequisite really to get your fingers in the soil and connect with some form of garden locally. And even if they've got some pots outside the local library, or get in touch with the local school, whatever the scale. Some people have got in touch with local councils to have flower beds in particular spaces, but it is the most important aspect of learning any form of herbalism is to understand the plants that you're actually taking from seed, watching them grow and sharing that experience. And we know that community gardens have the power to mitigate some of the worst problems in our society, you know, loneliness, things like food miles. There's just so many different aspects of positivity that come from community gardening, learning from one another.
Should we ask a question? Is there any So first of all, are any of you involved in a community medicine garden in your local area, or have created one yourself? If you can put it in the chat, that would be really cool, like where it is, or if you like hanging out with plants in a community garden. Or it might be a community vegetable garden that's got a few herbs growing. If you send to the whole group, yeah. Hey, Christabel.
Brilliant.
Oh, they closed the whole campus. Oh, yeah, that happens, especially with the way herbalism to universities as a course to try and get recognition as a profession. And actually it's been relatively unsustainable. Most of the university courses have now closed because they're expensive to run for low numbers.
Yeah, and Anthony, yes, fruit have properties. All plants, everything that grows is medicinal. And when we say medicine isn't only about the compounds and the actual physical chemistry, it's also, as we've said, about the actual connection and eating, nutrition. So important to eat well.
Oh, the herbal tea. Oh, this will be brilliant. We'll have a proper look through all of this later. It's great. And what about your favourite herb, or a herb that you use a lot? I know it's hard sometimes to pick a favourite herb because there's so many amazing herbs. But what about a herb that you really love or drink a lot of?
Chamomile.
Yay!
Calendula, Melissa.
So if there's
Rosemary.
questions, there was a question flash past, but make sure you write that down for the Q&A at the end. And we can mugwort, yay. Oh, we also dress up as mugwort sometimes. We've got mugwort characters. We do have some videos on YouTube. So we were making lots of remedies and putting things together and going out there into events and giving them to people, thinking if people could just taste a little bit of a herb, maybe it would be enough to spark a journey in them. And the Herbal Medicines Act, there was an EU directive on herbal medicines came into play in 2004, and in 2009 they started acting on it. And so they gave it a 5-year period of cooling off. They basically got this legislation in and then didn't start pulling people up on it till much later when it was deeply embedded. And we got a phone call one summer solstice to say that the preparations we were selling to people were illegal and that they needed licenses, and each product needed a license that cost £90,000 to initiate, that incorporated animal testing.
It was 3 years, so the £90,000 is for you to pay for your product to be brought up to line with pharmaceutical products, and that they compulsory need to be tested on animals, so that's part of it.
And then you needed to maintain that license each year, so it was going to be completely impossible to do that for the things that we were creating, which were like muscle rubs and drops, different drops, and tonics, generalized tonics. So we had to start thinking more creatively about how to get the word out there. And these characters that we're embodying now were part of a project that we took up to COP in October, right at the end of October, ready for the opening of the Fringe Festival that accompanied the whole conference. And we created some videos that we were got some funding to do, called Voices from the Hedgerow, which you can look up on our YouTube channel, the Seed Sisters, to go and see. But there's stuff about the fruits and the medicine of the hedgerow and the medicinal properties of those in those videos as well, if you're interested in that.
Oh, there's a lovely burdock there.
Beggar's buttons.
So there by our digging apparatus, you can see the inspiration for Velcro. But burdocks are a great a great one to be digging up now in sensory herbalism, which is our like our take on plant medicine, where we use all of our senses. We connect the plant parts with the elements and the season. And in the winter time, which we're in now, there was a hard frost in the garden this morning, and the winter is the element of earth for us and the plant part of root. And we like to dig up all of the medicinal roots that we use, and the burdock being a super one. Do you guys know burdock? Do people know and recognise this plant?
Pop it in the chat. So what you see with the seed heads of the burdock is after the second year. So burdock has a 2-year cycle, and after the first year, so you get all of the leaves, and between the first and the second year, in that autumnal winter time, you can dig up those amazing nutritious roots. Once they've seeded, they've kind of done their thing, but they're amazing to cook with. You can put the whole root on the fire and get it all soft and squishy inside, and then cut it open and eat it. It's really really tasty, but also a really good blood nutritive, supports a lot of the organs of elimination within the body. So it's a really good support for any detoxification.
Yeah, we call it alterative. So in herbalism, there are words that denote the actions of plants. And one of the older herbs, or the older actions or words for actions, is alterative, which means a blood cleanser. And the root in particular is so cleansing.
So a lot of people come to us and say they want to know more, but they just don't know where to start with herbs. And it can be that making that transition from looking at the hedgerow and just seeing a load of green to actually seeing individual friends with their own characteristics and personalities can be quite a transition for people. And we always say that whenever you're in charity shops, pick up any of these plant ID books that you can find, because often you'll find that they all have different things to offer, or you'll feel like you can manage or use one of them loads more easily than another. Some of them are very, very botanically detailed, and others are much more simple. That Herbs and Healing Plants one, there's a great kind of starter pocket guide.
It's Collins. But yeah, as Fee said, the more diversity of plant ID books you have, the better.
Yeah, because then you can have them all over your house.
Everywhere, in the toilet, by your bed.
By your bed. Oh, we all sit at night reading.
It's our porn.
Yeah. Send each other photos. Have you seen this one?
But the way that we encourage people to really learn about plants is through all aspects of observation. So using our senses, all of our senses of sight, touch, sound, taste, and by drawing, by taking a plant and getting deep into every aspect and using this sense of sight, when you draw a plant, you will not ever misidentify that plant again, because you'll be able to go really closely and inspect, has that root got little nodules on it? When you cut into the root, what colour is in there? With the aerial parts, with the above ground parts, what shape are the stems? Are there tiny little hairs on there?
And then what sort of root is it that you're using? Because you have the more tubous, bulbous roots. You have these, you can see here, are the tap roots, where they go straight down deep into the earth with little rootlets coming out to draw up nutrients. Or you have the modified stems, the rhizomes, which is your what gets called nettle roots, which is the rhizomes, and things like ginger roots. You know, if you've ever left ginger in the basket for too long and it starts to sprout, because it's actually a rhizome, like a modified stem that will creep along and then shoots out. So getting to really know the structures and the types of the plants really helps to to ID them in the future.
So yeah, we really encourage all of you to draw your plants if you want to get to know them a bit better. So getting back to nourishing our nerves and staying really rooted and grounded. And one of the best ways we can do that is by nourishing, taking in proper nutrition. And these pumpkin seeds here are full of omega fatty acids,
which help every cell in the body to function more efficiently, but are specifically really useful for the nerves. This is a close-up of the basic structure of a nerve, and you can see this myelin sheath here that runs along the axon of the nerve. And that myelin sheath, that kind of fatty coating, has got these little junctions in between it. And nerve signals run along those nerves by jumping inside from junction to junction. And if that myelin sheath isn't at its optimum, it is almost literally like your nerves get frayed and you start to get more jittery, your stress threshold reduces. But if you've got a really nourished myelin sheath, which lots of different herbs can help with, then it can help the smooth transition of those nerve impulses and really help just day-to-day coping with inevitable stresses, especially in these unprecedented times.
And the herbs and the plants that help and support our nervous system within herbalism are classed as nervines. And the nervines are many, many different herbs are nervines, and they're further classified into three classifications, if you like. The nervine tonics, or sometimes known as trophorestoratives. And one of the most famous of those is the borage, which is also full of those omega acids. Some of you might have heard of starflower oil. Some of you might have taken. Has anyone taken starflower oil? Let us know.
And maybe for some of you that do garden or know your plants a little bit, do you know what other plants are in the same family as the borage? Plant families are often being revised because they can be done on botanical characteristics or the phytochemicals, the constituents that are within the plants. So what have we got here? Ooh, take starflower regularly. So often you can get starflower oil in capsules to take, but this borage is in the same family as the comfrey, yay. And the flowers are so delicate and cucumbery to eat, but the hairs are actually quite irritant. The leaves have got fine hairs on them, which are actually quite irritant, as do the lungwort and the comfrey as well. If you've ever, green alkanet, if you've ever pulled up green alkanet when you've been gardening, you can get quite irritated skin from it. So being careful to harvest this herb when you do. But we really like to just get these iridescent flowers and use them in lots of different ways on salads or in ice cubes. But thinking about in those summer months when the flowers are out, actually incorporating them into your diet every day. We always think that herbalism is a lifestyle. And if you can just pick one little thing from the outdoors every day to interact with or have a nibble on, something that you're sure of the identification on, then you've got that direct interaction of all the phytochemicals. It's so fresh. You've actually gone out into nature or actually interacted with the plant to pick it. And it just creates this more prophylactic thinking about keeping your health good before illness sets in.
And these nervine tonics, the trophorestoratives, are really, really important for us to have daily. And one of the ones that we love is oats, Avena sativa. And we have oats in our porridge, we have oats as flapjacks, and also we make tinctures from the green milky oat seeds.
and they're so beautiful to grow. They look so wafty and delicate, and so many people eat oats every single day and don't even know what they look like growing. So it's a really good one to spread some oat seeds, just a little bit of it, to have it growing in your garden.
And so the second classification of nervines are the relaxants.
These have been handy
Yes.
this last year or
And
so.
again, relaxants, you know, there's loads and loads of different herbs that are nervine relaxants, and there's a big spectrum. So there's ones that we look at today, like the chamomile or the lavender, which are very gentle relaxants. And then they go right down to some of the sedatives, of which opium poppy is a sedative. So you can see this grand scale of of relaxed nervous systems. Valerian, another incredible herbal nervine relaxant.
And when you're choosing what sort of relaxant you want, you can think about the crossover compounds or the crossover actions that are within them, as well as what's available to you. So something like your chamomile is also a soothing digestive herb, something that's called a carminative, which is actually directly linked to spasm in the gut and releasing trapped wind. And it's also got a gentle bitter action, so for gently resetting sluggish digestion.
And then the third classification of nervines are the stimulants, of which the majority of our world is living on caffeine or theobromine. There's such huge portions of the global population who drink tea or coffee or eat chocolate on a daily basis, which all alter our consciousness quite greatly and stimulate our nerves.
We often say that we would never give one herb in herbalism as often as, you know, tea and coffee is drunk. And these are really powerful herbs that interact with the nerves. We do use rosemary, which is also a stimulant, and we often use it when people are trying to reduce their levels of coffee. It is also a prime liver herb, rosemary, but it is quite hyperstimulating, so you wouldn't take it long term, the rosemary, and it's a nice one to incorporate into food, having in more of an adjunct type in your day-to-day lives.
But you can see that if you are suffering from any form of anxiety, taking a nervine stimulant might be counterintuitive. So something to think about there. Something else to think about now.
So winter, this time where all the energy has dropped away from the seasons of growth and the harvest. Lots of the fruits have been eaten by the birds or collected by herbalists and foragers. And there's almost like a calm silence when the wind goes away. But we just wanted you to take a moment to just reflect on the season of winter and just think about any words or associations that you might have with winter. You can pop them in the chat or you can make notes in your own notebooks. But anything that winter evokes in you or that you might associate. So the plant constituents drop down into the roots in winter time, and they start to change and gather polysaccharides, long chain sugars, ready to provide energy for the sprouting leaves or flowers in spring. And it's really a time where busyness is going on under the surface, and lots of those words are reflective of that, the gathering energy and the reflection time, the going within. And it's also a time of hardship. You know, it's great if we've been well prepared, if you've got the wood store sorted or the metaphorical wood store sorted, but it can catch you out with winter, with the changes of season and being ill prepared. It's something that you have to be ready for. And that time of the energy dropping down is also part of that reason why in sensory herbalism we have it as that root time.
Here we can see an extremely familiar and abundantly growing, often called weed. Dandelion, dandelion, dandelion. Piss the bed, it's or leaf, because of that diuretic action held in those leaves. And dandelion holds within it this perfect illustration of balance of all of the elements. We see the roots as extremely grounded and connected into the grounded system of our bodies, the digestion, the roots having a very strong affinity to the liver and the digestive system. And we see the leaves as the spring, the fresh spring growth connected to the water element within sensory herbalism, and the kidneys and the whole urinary system with its volumetric diuretic action. And then those pure sunshine, open flowers with the fire element and the summer. And we all, well, I'm assuming that we all have seen the dandelion clocks as they turn from solar to lunar with the seeds that blow off on the wind as their air dispersed, and connected then in with the autumn air element. So dandelion to us is this perfect illustration of how the plants reflect the elements and the seasons back to us.
And the dandelion roots have got that amazing milky fluid that you see when you snap a dandelion stem open, which is this kind of bitter, sticky inulin. And that's really acts in the body as to support with blood sugar regulation. So where a lot of fluctuations linked with the nerves, we can often reach for sugary foods if we're feeling low or a crash to kind of stimulate. And the dandelion just brings us back to center. It helps to regulate all of those fluctuations. With that taproot, it really helps to get down into the root of health issues that are going on. And the root is often a really good place for people to start to get to know herbs. You can do so much. You can tincture it. You can turn it into dandelion root coffee. You can chop it up and taste it, taste the bitterness and explore it. And it's something that you can still go out and find and dig up and start to work with now. So it's one of those roots that we really encourage you to get out and start to explore even now in these winter months. And then again in a few weeks' time, and just watch how those roots are changing as all of the compounds are working their magic, ready for that new growth in spring.
And it gives you the opportunity to look at the plant through the winter. And we encourage you to have an explore of what a copycat or similar species or different plants that can be misidentified for the dandelion, because there are a few. So it's a good exercise, because if you've seen dandelion, you might automatically think you know it, but maybe find out which are lookalike copycat plants.
And the dandelions that you want, the common dandelion, rather than some of these other looky-likeys, don't have fine hairs along the leaves of them. They're really smooth. So this Taraxacum officinale is the one that you want. And if you're not 100% sure, grab a friend that does know. And the horseradish root, the gnarly horseradish.
So this is our native ginger, if you like. This is the closest plant we have to having that heat in its roots. like the ginger's rhizomes. And the horseradish is well famed throughout history as being more valuable than gold in some times.
And once it starts to take hold, it really goes for it. So if you do find a patch of horseradish, there should be plenty of it. We like to make an oil that we put into part of a concoction that we call Ache Ease, which is a rub for external use.
Because you know that when you externally apply something that's really hot and spicy, you're inviting the circulation to come to that area. So as you apply horseradish onto a joint or onto an area that's achy, you are stimulating fresh blood flow, so fresh oxygenated blood, which is bringing all of your immune complexes there to kind of clean up any debris or to just support that area.
If there's any inflammation there. It used to be used to actually knead on the skin to actually create blistering. And the idea was that with that fluid, a lot of those inflammatory compounds would be brought out into that white blood cell rich fluid. That's pretty heroic medicine. It's not something that we tend to do as modern herbalists.
But for internal medicine, you know, you just bring the horseradish in, and as you start chopping it up, you can feel your eyes start to go because of all the gases. There's mustard gas within the horseradish, but that element is opening. As you inhale horseradish, it travels through your body and opens your respiration, really helpful with any kind of respiratory infection. And it's been super useful over the last few months, helping people who are having breathing issues.
So the mustard oils that are actually in the horseradish are excreted by the body in part through the lungs. So you can actually get this antimicrobial action directly at the level of the lungs with the horseradish. So in the rub that we create, which has also got comfrey and heather oil in it, we do use it as a rub for the chest for any coughs as well.
You can go out, and horseradish likes to grow in damp places. We often find it along the canal sides. And as Fee said, it grows in abundance when it's there. If you want to introduce it to your gardens or growing patches, be warned. It's very hard to contain. Even when you do sink down containers and give it boundaries, it likes to cross those boundaries. As a hot herb of Mars, it's full of action.
So when you go harvesting, it's nice to recognize that you are interacting with the wilds and a sense of reciprocity. So thinking about how can you actually benefit the plant that you're harvesting by working with it? Is there different ways that you can encourage its growth or spread it? How can you give thanks to the plant for the gifts, the bounty that it's bringing? And in lots of cases, when we start working with the plants in our hedgerows, you naturally want to start planting more of them. You want to increase biodiversity in your local areas. You have much more of an understanding and a reason to want to nurture nature as well as just take from it. And even just in the recognition that you are coming to meet the plant and taking something from it holds great power. And we often think that the more intention you put into creating a remedy right from the harvesting of it, or even further back the growing of it, the more powerful that remedy is. So you can come in whatever way feels appropriate for you to maybe provide some nutrients to where it's growing, or maybe plant some of that seed further along the hedgerow, or whatever it might be, but some sort of act of kindness or service to that plant.
And we smoke mugwort So mugwort, or Artemisia vulgaris, is our native European tobacco. So way before tobacco was brought back to Europe, we were smoking, and in a lot of the old herbals, mugwort is called sailor's tobacco or gypsy tobacco. And we like to put mugwort into our pipes and to evoke the goddess, the moon goddess, Artemis. Artemisia is named for Artemis, and Artemis, the triple god, version, if you like, of Artemis, and evoking this energy of reverence and connection to nature, and asking something outside ourselves to guide us.
And Artemis was depicted as the huntress. So she did hunt wild animals, especially the more fierce ones, but she was also said to protect the woodlands. So if there was people that were taking too much, she would go and sort them out. So there's this fierce sense of interacting but protecting what is sacred and special. So we smoke the mugwort, we go out into nature, we'll have a specific intention for why we're harvesting that plant, whether it's to get to know it, to make medicine from it for ourselves, our family, for the wider populace, but we'll have the intention in our minds when we harvest it. And you will know when enough is enough. The plant will let you know, but we always leave enough for it to regrow on. And some instances where there's spikes on the plant, they'll let you know, they'll actually spike. You can harvest for ages and then suddenly you'll get a spike. And if you don't listen to that one straight away, you'll get another one. It'd be like, okay, it's time, that's enough now.
And we observe the moon, the lunar cycles. We've just moved into a Piscean moon at the moment, a water element, and the biodynamic calendar today is in its leaf, which is good for propagation. But we connect with all of the universal and cosmic elements that we can. And the way we harvest the plant parts is that the full moon is the time to gather the aerial plant parts, because the full moon, as the moon grows and that light energy in the sky, draws up all of the plant constituents towards it with that magnetic pull. And then for the new moon, we dig the roots, so where all of the constituents are under the earth. And that's something that we've done intuitively.
And then also observing where the plant's growing. So we try to, as far as possible, have them away from where we know there's heavy chemical pesticides and herbicides used. Also, if you're we don't wash our plants once we've harvested them. So people often ask about dogweed. And what we would do if there's plants growing is take from higher up or from further back on the verge where you know they're less likely to have been interfered with animals. So using your learned or informed intuition about where's good to harvest. And there's a dandelion tincture when it's just been started to be brewed, because as it goes on, it gets really milky and thick, the dandelion tinctures, all that inulin is getting sucked out of it.
Yeah, and this time of year for us is a time where we always take a bit of a cleanse. It's all that heavy excess of Christmas, where cheese seems to be the dominant food source. Cheese, crackers and chutney have been eaten in excess, and dandelion is a super important liver support. And we make a set of drops, the Fresh Start drops, that we mix the dandelion root tincture with a dandelion leaf tincture, really supporting the liver and the kidneys to help clear out and detox whatever else we've been shifting our consciousness with over Christmas.
And it's not complex creating a tincture. You can see there the dandelions are chopped up as small as you can get them, put into a jar and then covered. We use vodka for dandelion root, and we use as best quality vodka as we can get, because that's all part of it as well. You don't want to be using poor quality alcohols in the preparation of your medicines and then taking them. And then we leave it for a lunar cycle, strain it off, and then put it into other mixtures. So those fresh start drops are like a tonic, and we take them alongside. We've got the mushrooms and other bits and bobs there that we have.
I think we're going to leave space now for some questions from you, and we'll come back to that later. But if any of you are,
what we could do is if we show you this slide, and then we could just take off. Yeah, so this is just, we've got a PDF for you all. It's got some helpful info about supporting yourself with stress and anxiety. If you want to write to us on that email address, then we can send that out to you. But we'll probably turn off the screen sharing, and then you could actually come on and ask us questions, or you can put them in the chat if you're feeling shy.
And we'll put that in the chat.
And we'll put that in the chat, yeah.
So let's turn off the screen sharing. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Put that in the chat.
Should we put ourselves on full so we can see everyone?
Yeah. Let's do that.
There we are. So to start with, to see if there's any, there's lots of questions coming in the
someone was asking about smoking. I saw that.
We can come back to the chat. Let's see if anyone wants to ask in person first of all.
So while they're thinking about that, so to prepare the mugwort for smoking, we're in the UK, and mugwort is at its prime flowering around the August full moon in the south of the UK, and we go out on the full moon in August and we harvest the healthy looking aerial parts of the mugwort, which sometimes grow up to like 7 foot tall. It's a huge, huge plant. And we, as we said, we have a bit of a harvesting ritual and connect in and tell the mugworts our intention and what we would like to receive, and often make a bit of a promise. And then we cut the plant and tie it in bunches and hang those bunches up somewhere that is well ventilated and dry, but out of direct sunlight. And when the plant is completely dry, we strip all of the plant parts off the stems, and that in itself is an incredible ceremony and ritual. We often do that sat in circle with a lot of people, connecting in and talking about the mugwort, or listening to some music and just meditating with the mugwort, and that becomes the smoke.
And we do use that on its own for the harvesting ritual, but we also mix it with marshmallow leaf and peppermint and elderflower to create a herbal smoke combination that we really love. We've experimented with lots of different combos over the year, and that's our smoke to garden that we like to use as well.
Does anybody want to unmute and talk to us and ask us a question?
I don't know who's got control over the hand things, but someone said they were going to.
I think they've all got control. I think you're all in control.
I know, but we can't see if they're off our page.
Oh right, let's go to the next page.
They can just barge in, maybe, if they've got.
Yeah, barge on in.
No.
Nobody want to.
Anyone barging in? No. Okay, so let's go to the.
Go on, barge in.
It's intimidating having so many people.
Ask us a question. For real.
No.
Okay, let's do it like that then. dandelion looks like it's dancing. 4 new messages we've got that one. It's really interesting hearing them all smoking. I have so many questions. Dan, where are you? You've got so many questions. Come and ask us them.
Really interested in hearing more about smoking herbal preparations.
Yeah, I've had loads of questions just because I don't really know anything.
Oh, good.
Well, I'm really interested in the relationship with caffeine, and well, I'm a mental health nurse, or kind of was a mental health nurse, still am, I guess, but just really interested in stimulants and some mental health presentations, but also for people who are teetotal, myself being one of them, how can we make effective tinctures in inverted commas without using alcohol? Because I don't drink at all, so don't want to necessarily, even in really small quantities, have alcohol as part of my herbal remedies, which so I have made some syrups and stuff using kombucha and things like that, mixing with some herbal, but nothing, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be as effective, or I can't find as much information about making non-alcoholic kind of tinctures. So there was some of the thoughts or questions.
That's a great question there, Dan, and there's lots of effective ways of taking herbal medicine that isn't suspension in alcohol. And one of the ways that we work with a lot is vinegars. We've got an orchard, and we're able to make lots of apple cider vinegar, and vinegar is an extremely effective medium to extract the minerals from the plants. You get different extractions in different mediums, and so vinegars is one way, but also honeys. So for those of you that are not vegan, you can extract in a honey, and you can mix the two to make what's called an oxymel. So vinegar and honey preparation, which can have different herbs or many different plants in the vinegar and different ones in the honey that you then mix to make a concoction.
So all of these ways are ways of essentially preserving the herb from the season that you're harvesting it, so that you can use it past the time that's optimum to harvest them. And as Karen said, there's different things are extracted from the plant according to, if it's in alcohol, you'll get more alcohol soluble compounds. If it's in an oil, there'll be oil soluble compounds. Water, it'll be more the purely water. And some things you need to decoct, so you need to actually boil up rather than just infuse, so to simmer them, so things like roots and barks. But harvesting herbs and drying them out and creating different preparations as teas is something that's actually a really lovely and quite powerful way of taking the herbs. But it's a bit more involved because you have to brew it up each time rather than just take a tincture. So that's a really nice way. And actually each time you're seeing the herb every time you make a brew from it. So it's a really nice way of interacting, and can be quite ritualistic in itself as well, making your pot of tea in the morning.
And we really like powders. We love powders. We bought, like coffee grinders, and lots of herbs do really well in coffee grinders, not if you've ground coffee in it because it will get a residue. But with a powder, we add the powders to things like juices or smoothies or even into teas, and you're actually taking in the entire herb in that way. So with the infusions, you're getting that water extraction, or with the vinegars, you're getting the vinegar extraction. But with powders that are mixed into your juices, smoothies or teas or soups, you're taking the whole herb.
And then there's glycerites as well. So that is probably the most common thing that you'll hear as a replacement for a tincture. But the glycerin is often highly processed. So it's just being a little bit aware about your sources of that. But that's essentially like a sweet extract from vegetable origin that you can macerate the plant in. A month later, strain it off, and then use that very similar to tinctures.
We have some questions with their hands raised from Dot, Bryony and Jasmine, if you'd like to answer any of those.
Yes.
Sure. Should we do it in that order?
Yeah. Is it
There's
Dot, did you
Dot.
say?
Yeah, it was Dot.
Would you unmute yourself, Dot, and then we can hear you?
Oh, there.
Yeah, hello.
You might ask.
Ask to unmute.
I found it. There we go.
Yeah.
I've got two screens, so I'm like, woo. I can't remember what my question was. Sorry. Hilarious. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I think next was Bryony.
Dot,
Hiya. Sorry, my screen's a bit dark. I was just wondering, so I mean, I normally use quite a lot of herbs in teas and things, and now I'm pregnant, and it's I mean, in some of my herbal books, it's quite confusing which herbs are okay, and even herbs like mint or oregano or things like that, which I would just use normally. Suddenly, I'm like, oh, am I meant to be taking them? So actually, like, since I became pregnant, I kind of reduced my herb intake, and I don't know kind of where to go with that, because I really want to use them to support myself. And I was just wondering if you had any advice on that.
I can tell you a story about that, which isn't advice, but it's a story. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was traveling in a truck around Morocco, and I was up in the hills, and the local Berber women offered me a cup of what they call Shiva tea, and that's wormwood. And I was visibly pregnant, and I said, and I, as a trained medical herbalist, I knew that wormwood is an ememnagogue. It brings on a bleed. It's known as abortifant, you know, abortion inducing. And I said to them, what do you mean? Is this herb something you drink in pregnancy? And they were saying, oh yes, it's really strengthening, it's really good. And so I had to just sit with the tea and take a sip of it and really feel into my own body, my own intuition, and let go of all of that intellect. And I drank Shiva tea with those women in the hills quite regularly while I was in Morocco. I also drank peppermint, which I was taught in university is not particularly useful because of the interaction with sphincters. But my story is about connecting in with your own intuition and trusting yourself as much as you can, or connecting with a local medical herbalist who knows you and can support you.
And it's cliched, but you know, a pregnant body is definitely more vulnerable within those first 3 months, and we wouldn't advise changing anything within the first 3 months. But if you have a bit of oregano in your food as something that you do regularly, that's a different thing from suddenly taking oregano as a medicine, you know. Again, it's about tapping into your intuition, thinking about what your norms are. Even lavender has got a very, very strong hormonal activity, and I wouldn't use that in the first 3 months with someone, just because personally I know that it affects my hormones very easily, but other people it doesn't. So you will read a lot of different stuff within herbal medicine, but it is for pregnancy, but it is really about trusting your intuition and being not cautious in those first 3 months, but really thinking about how things feel to you. In my second pregnancy, I'd been able to take mugwort. Again, it's in the same family as the wormwood. It's another herb that can be seen as an abortifacient, but also can be used to strengthen and support the womb in preparation for birth when you're prone to miscarrying. And in my first pregnancy, I was absolutely fine with mugwort. In the second pregnancy, if we were burning mugwort in a space, I couldn't be around it, and we had to stop doing it because it was making me feel physically sick, even just the smell of it burning. and I had a real sensitivity to it in that second pregnancy. So again, it is very
individual.
It's very individual.
But congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you know, finding birth and pregnancy and birth is pure magic. And we were really privileged to deliver one another's babies. We were there to catch them, and Susan Weed's book, she has a book, and in her book she has an anecdote about poppies that were birthed, and I believe that it was ground ivy that they used to help deliver the placenta, and we used that and it worked extremely well. So I rate Susan Weed's book.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. I've ordered it actually. But yeah, thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Aviva Rom's another herbalist that's got some nice stuff on pregnancy and early years as well. So to look her up too.
What was that one, sorry?
Viva Rom.
Viva Rom. All right. Thank you.
A herbalist and a midwife.
And there was another, is it Jasmine? You've got your hand up.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I love your costumes. It's really great to see that bit of theatre coming through. I pick a lot of elderberries and rowan berries, hawthorn, and rose tips in early autumn. I'm wondering what, I mean, I know rose tips have a lot of vitamin C, but I'm not that sure about hawthorn berries and what they provide. And I know a bit about elderberries, but it would be good just to hear your thoughts on those. And I make them into chutneys and put them with cider vinegar and make them into syrups and things, and then have them throughout winter.
So hawthorn is one that features in our Voices from the Hedgerow videos. Actually, there's one that's about astrology and herbalism, and we've got nettle and hawthorn together as herbs of Mars, which are powerful acting herbs. And hawthorn has got this real strengthening quality to it, and we often associate it with the quality of courage, and the word courage has got its roots with cœur, the heart. And hawthorn has specific affinity for strengthening the blood vessels that feed the heart. So it can strengthen the force of the contractions of the heart, but it doesn't push the blood pressure up because it also relaxes the blood vessels at the same time. So it has this really amazing affinity with strengthening a heart. And we often use it when a heart's broken and you're stuck in that grief pattern and can't break out of it. And hawthorn can really help to shift grief, not to move away from grief, but to move through and work with grief.
And we make an absolutely banging hawthorn ketchup. So the hawthorn berries we boil up in vinegar and have honey and various different spices in there, and it's amazing. It's
so delicious, and it's an example again of where, I mean, you said about that you use a lot of syrups and things, but that thing of getting herbs into your diet daily, so having a much broader variety of phytochemicals within the diet through having hawthorn ketchup or a bit of herb vinegar, rather than just something that's less nutritious or less complex.
Yeah, it's really where food as medicine, where it's at. And those plants that you were talking about, Jasmine, that you picked in the autumn, there are native superfoods. They're what we have every so often. The supermarkets or the food sellers come up with a new native, we're the new superfood. You know, we've had like spirulina and those things that you can't say. Acai. What's the one that you really, what's the
acai?
No, quinoa.
Oh, quinoa,
you know,
yeah.
It's all problematic stuff that comes from far-flung places. And we've got crab apples and hawthorns and damsons and rose hips, and they're all packed full of nutrients, and where we see colour in the plants, these red colours, we know that there is some compound in there that supports and nourishes our blood vessels. And the blood vessels in our circulatory system are the transport system of our bodies. That's how everything gets about. So the nourishment, nutrients, information travels, and it's so important that we move away from processed foods and start eating more locally around us. We read a report a few years ago that was looking at some people's, I can't remember, it was somewhere in northern Canada, where they'd been hunting and eating in a very, very small local area. And the microbes that were in the soil were identical to the microbes that were in their gut biomes. And it's when we become completely one with our environment, when we eat from a space that we can walk, where we can hunt and forage. And one of our close friends has blown us away this year. She's inspired us. We've just been staying with her in Scotland. Yeah, Monica Wilde. She's only eaten wild foods for 1 year. She's only eaten things that she's gone hunted, foraged, or roadkill, or been given by local farmers.
Not even grown in the garden. So things that had tipped over from last year, they had to give away because their rule was only hunted or foraged. And yeah, her journey's been amazing, and she's looked at her gut biome and the bacteria that's in her digestive system and watched that change over the year. So she's got 2 books coming out about it, Monica Wilde, and you can follow her on social media.
Yeah, and when I grow up, I want to be like her.
Yeah, she's well cool.
She is.
We love her.
More questions?
Or we talk. Ask one more question, just based on the cooking. When you cook up the berries, can you overcook them?
So you mentioned rose hips and vitamin C. It's always been a bit of a contentious one because vitamin C is quite easily destroyed in high heat. But at the same, we see it as a bit like cooking food, in that, yeah, you can totally overdo something, and you've got to really feel into keeping things on a light simmer, watching when they're ready to mash up, seeing about straining it, and really feeling into that, rather than just blasting something and then putting the sugar in and turning it up to a really high heat and leaving it syruping up for hours. You know, it's about really taking time and being much more slow and conscious with it, and seeing when that turn into the syrup is right. And
yeah, we know that heat destroys vitamins and nutrients, so yes, you can overcook things, definitely. The least amount of heat possible is always optimum.
So we're coming towards the end of the session. I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. I've seen that, Monica, you've had your hand up for a while, so maybe you can go next, and then anyone who's asked questions in the chat, or who's still got their hands up after that, is there a way of then asking you in another forum?
Yes, so yeah, we've put our email, let's put our email properly in the chat again.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you do that, and then we'll hear from Monica now.
Right,
thank you.
And also, just before Monica's question, while we're on that with how to ask us things, if you follow us on social media and ask us in like the Facebook feed, so we're Seed Sisters, Cultivating Change on Facebook, and you can find us in Instagram as well. If you ask us questions in those threads as well, we'll always get back to those. We keep an eye on them. That's quite a nice way of interacting, because then you can chat to other people that are part of the community as well.
But if you have questions, and if you would like one of those PDFs, What does PDF
Surely
stand for?
everyone wants that PDF.
No, you all want that PDF.
People love a good PDF, don't they?
It's
You
the
love
thing.
looking at your
It's like the
screen.
pandemic PDFs. How many PDFs have you got?
You can print it out and put it in the, oh no, don't print it, that's bad for the trees.
Portable document format.
What is it?
Portable document format or something like that.
See?
I'm going in 90 minutes is where I start to lose the plot. Can you tell?
So let's answer the question quickly.
Mine will be a very quick one, a link to the previous one. I absolutely love elderberries, but really struggle how to prepare them while getting the goodness out of it.
Where's Monica?
Struggle no more.
Yes.
Email us and we'll send you a recipe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And always add lemon.
Yeah.
I do that. And cinnamon. And
Yeah.
honey.
Yum.
My teenager, we went for a walk in Wales and it was really touristy, like bit of Snowdonia we were at, and she walked ahead of us and she was grabbing elderberries and making herself look like she had 2 black eyes and black and lip. And all these people were just staring at us. It's like, what is going on? So that's what you do, embarrass parents.
Indeed, with that, elderberries and blueberries.
They're all just, oh, they all lost the
Shock.
plot as well. Oh no, they're back.
In the back. You froze.
Maybe we didn't freeze.
Oh, our connection's unstable. It's like my
We're getting unstable now, so yeah, maybe email us.
bye.
Bye. Is that how
Okay,
we
let's
end?
share the screen.
Thanks so much. Yeah, maybe we're all getting unstable now, but thanks for sharing your email, and there'll be questions coming your way. Could you also share the ketchup recipe? There's been lots of requests.
Yes, we've got it on a PDF. If you email,
it's in the harvesting guide, or it's in the autumn guide. Write to us and we'll connect you with links where you can find everything.
yeah, we have loads of e-guides. We have seasonal e-guides on our website as well that are full of like recipes and things you can get in each season, and they've been a real labour of love over the lockdown to try and provide things for people to be able to easily follow and get out. So you can also have a look on the website and see. But there's recipes that go along with the videos as well. If you come and have a look at the Voices from the Hedgerow.
We're a
Just
one-stop shop.
just email us and we'll send you everything, because we spend our life on the internet.
I was just going to say, if you want to spend less of your life, I posted a link to the Hoover chat that you guys set up earlier, which was about who's growing medicinal herbs. And maybe if you post, I think you can attach documents to it. So maybe you could share some of the things you talked about in that. And then if people go to that link, which I've just put in the chat again, then they can also find it there.
You have to sign your life away to us. You have to email us so that we can.
Okay, don't do it then. Yeah, everyone sign your lives away straight away.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're about. We want your souls.
But what we do have is newsletters. So you just write on our website, you actually go to that, you can sign up for our newsletters, and we send out recipes and articles once a month at least, with what we're doing, little anecdotes, recipes, what's going on with the moon, things you can get up to, and just keeping you talking about ourselves sometimes. But yeah, we'd love to connect with you all, and we do. Our whole aim is about building a massive community of plant lovers, and we're trying to develop the part of our website to be able to host people's community gardens all over and come and make little videos and films about people's projects, and so that you can see where you are in the world and connect on and find out what's going on in your local area. So we're looking for funding for that at the moment, but that's where our passion is connecting you all up together. So do come and hang out with us in the cyber world, and then maybe we can see you in person in the next year or so. So thank you so much for all being here. It's a lush turnout. It's loads of people, loads of names, if not faces. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really informative and entertaining, and I think everyone felt similarly.
And you can download that chat as well, and maybe over the next few weeks we'll put little posts up with some of those questions answered on the social media, because we like input and ideas about what people want to know about. So yeah, and it's nice to see some familiar faces as well. Okay, thanks so much. Do we just go now?